In our last video, we took a look at the entrance of Roman Catholic missions into Thailand in the 1600s. In today's video, we're going to take a look at the beginning of Protestant work, both outside Thailand and then within Thailand as well. Although this may be surprising, the first Protestant outreach to Thai did not actually take place inside of Thailand. Siam and Burma have had many conflicts over the years, and in 1767, the Burmese army sacked the city of Ayutthaya, the capital of Siam, and carried off many captives to Burma. And the descendants of those people were still living in Burma many decades later. In the early 1800s, the descendants of those war captives were still in Burma. So when Adoniram Judson and his wife Ann Judson arrived in Burma, and they set to work learning Burmese and reaching out to the Burmese, they also found another population of people. These were the children and the grandchildren, the descendants of these Siamese captives of war. Ann Judson was the one who actually noticed this population that had a different speech. They weren't Burmese. What were they? What were they speaking? And she became interested in these descendants of Siamese captives in Burma. So she got to work learning Siamese, learning Thai, using those two interchangeably, Siamese and Thai. And she translated the Gospel of Matthew into Thai, as well as a gospel tract and the small catechism that her husband Adoniram had written for the Burmese. Through the efforts of Ann Judson in translating this literature, as also sharing the gospel with the Siamese in Thailand, the first known Siamese person, came to faith in Burma. His name was Wong Shui Puen. My apologies to anyone who knows Burmese, because I'm sure I have not said that correctly. But you also may be wondering, why does the first Siamese convert have a Burmese name? Well, they've been there for many, many years. They preserved their culture and their language, but they'd also adjusted to the Burmese context as well. So after him, there were some other Siamese who came to faith in Burma. And even though the Judson's ministry was largely to the Burmese, they also had a heart for whoever was there. This was a characteristic of many early missionaries. They may have been focused on one particular group, but they had a burden for any people who didn't know the gospel. So in Southeast Asia, there were many diaspora populations in various places. And so when diaspora Siamese were discovered in Burma, Ann Judson decided she wanted to reach out to them. The first resident Protestant missionaries in Thailand were Karl Dahlfred and Jacob Tomlin. Whereas Ann Judson was reaching out to Siamese in Burma, Karl Dahlfred and Jacob Tomlin arrived in Bangkok in August 1828, and they're known as the first resident Protestant missionaries in Thailand. They were in the country for 2.5 years, and during that time, they reached out to the Chinese, the Siamese, and whoever else that they found there. Both of them knew Chinese coming into the country. Dahlfred was a German evangelist who also had some medical training, and Tomlin was a missionary from England with the London Missionary Society. They got to work learning Siamese, but at the same time, they were also handing out gospels, tracts, and other literature in Chinese. When the ships from China came in to do trading during certain seasons of the year, Dahlfred and Tomlin would go down to the port, and they'd get onto the ships, they'd share the gospel, and they distribute Bibles and literature to the Chinese sailors. They were interested in reaching out to the Chinese primarily, of which the majority of the Bangkok population at that time were actually ethnically Chinese. It was more Chinese than it were Siamese in Bangkok at the time. But handing out literature brought attention. The fact that they showed up and they were doing this evangelism brought attention, not always the good kind of attention. People loved their books, whether they could read or not. They were happy to receive these novelties. The printing press had not yet come to Thailand. But the Jesuits were already there, wanted them out. Catholic Protestant relations were not so good in the 19th century. Also, some local Siamese suspected these two foreign men of being spies or inciting the Chinese to rebellion. They were handing out these Chinese books. What were the books about? Was it political rebellion? The king ordered one of Dahlfred and Tomlin's books to be translated. And when he discovered that it was about religion, not politics, a lot of the heat came off of Dahlfred and Tomlin. Nevertheless, they still lay low for a while. And because they had books to distribute and had medicines to distribute, many people actually came to see them at their small rented home near the Portuguese consul. Dahlfred and Tomlin were only in Bangkok for a couple years, but in that time, They began to learn Siamese. They translated the New Testament, Gospels, and Romans, and also they achieved a dictionary up to the letter R. In fairness, though, it was actually Maria Gustloff, Karl Gustloff's wife, who did a majority of the work on the dictionary. There was only one convert from their evangelism efforts in Bangkok at the time, a Chinese man named Bunti. But even though, in terms of evangelistic fruitfulness, there wasn't a lot to show for even though in terms of evangelistic fruitfulness, there wasn't a lot to show for Gustloff and Tomlin's work. They sent a couple letters. They sent one letter to the American Board of Commissioners for Foreign Missions, or the ABCFM in the United States, requesting more missionaries. And they also sent a letter to the American Baptist Mission in Burma. As a result, Adoniram Judson and his team in Burma, they sent one couple from Burma relocated to Bangkok. This was John Taylor Jones and his wife, Eliza. In 1833, J.T. Jones and his wife settled in Bangkok, having been in Burma previously. What made them different from Gustloff and Tomlin, besides the fact they stayed much longer, is that they came specifically to reach the Thai. Gustloff and Tomlin had been focused on the Chinese diaspora population who had been living in Bangkok, but the Jones were there to reach the Thai. They were restricted to Bangkok. They weren't given official permission to go anywhere else in the country, so they studied Thai. They began doing outreach. In later years, it was said that John Taylor Jones' ability in Thai was more eloquent than his English. Besides doing outreach and learning Thai, John Taylor Jones set to work translating the New Testament from Greek into Thai. This was completed, and eventually 58,000 copies were printed in 1843. Presbyterian missionaries who came later took some issue with his translation because he translated baptizo as immerse in Thai, which the Presbyterians did not care for. Modern Thai Bible translations use baptisma, which is a more neutral word that Presbyterians and Baptists can both be happy with. The Jones family in Bangkok was eventually joined by other American Baptist missionaries, including William Dean. Together, they continued both Thai and Chinese evangelism, and in 1833, the first Protestant church was founded in Thailand. This was Maitri Jit Baptist Church, which is still a thriving and active church in Bangkok today. Bunti, who was the only man converted to the ministry of Gustloff and Tomlin, became a member of this church, although in later years he acquired an opium addiction and eventually left the faith, quite sadly. I'd like to talk a little bit now about probably the man who is the most famous missionary in Thai history, and this is Dr. Dan Beach Bradley. Arriving in the mid-1830s, he came as a doctor, he came as a missionary, he came as a printer. He introduced vaccination to the country. He performed the first modern surgery in Thailand. He brought a printing press with him from Singapore, and the first Thai government document that was ever formally printed was printed on Dan Bradley's press. He started the first newspaper in Thai history, the Bangkok Recorder. At his house and his clinic in Bangkok, he regularly received patients, and he gave them medicines, he gave them treatment for free. He also handed out little gospel tracts and Bible verses. He did evangelism alongside his medical care. Dan Bradley is known for doing the first surgery in Thailand, which people didn't think was possible. It was believed that you could not cut off a part of a person's body and still have them survive. But when there was a local temple festival and a large cannon exploded, sending shrapnel every place, there was a Buddhist monk who was severely injured. Dan Bradley successfully amputated his arm, and then he lived to tell the tale, which is something that the Thai didn't think was possible at the time. When he successfully was able to vaccinate some people in the case of a epidemic, the king saw this, and he had Dan Bradley train a number of the royal physicians to also perform vaccinations as well. Dan Bradley is known for many firsts. He wanted to evangelize, and he did evangelize, although a lot of his time was taken up with printing, was taken up with medicine. If there's one missionary that Thai people know today, it's Dan Bradley, because he appears in the Thai school books for all the firsts that he introduced into Thailand, introducing printing and medicine and vaccination, the first newspaper. He's known and he's remembered for the modernization that he brought to the country. In Bangkok today, if you go to the Protestant cemetery, the Bangkok Protestant cemetery, there's a large monument, there's a grave, there's a plaque commemorating Dan Bradley and what he did for the country. One of Dan Bradley's co-workers was a man named Jesse Caswell, and he also contributed to the modernization of the country. In the case of Caswell, it was in part by being an English tutor to the future king. King Monggut Rama IV, before he became king and ascended the throne, he was a monk, and for many years he lived in the temple, and he was involved with the reform of Buddhism in some significant ways, but that doesn't come into the story right now. King Monggut was a forward-looking, a modern monarch. He wanted to get Western knowledge, Western languages, Western science in order to develop his country. So as a means to this, he knew that he needed to acquire English. So missionary Jesse Caswell, who was also working with Dan Bradley as part of the ABCFM mission, Jesse Caswell agreed to tutor King Monggut in English. So the two men studied together regularly. And Caswell, besides teaching English to the king, he requested the opportunity to talk about religion, to talk about Christianity to the people in the temple as well. And the future king granted this permission. So after Monggut and Caswell studied English together, Monggut said, "This room over here in the temple, when we're done studying each time, you can have permission to use that room, and any interested parties can come and listen to what you have to say about religion." In Thailand, there's a high respect for teachers. So the relationship between Monggut and his English teacher was very strong. When Caswell passed away in 1853, Monggut erected a monument over his grave. And then many years later, when Caswell's widow had already gone back to the United States, King Monggut sent a monetary gift, equivalent to $500 at the time, via another missionary to give to Caswell's widow, who was in the United States. In many ways, it's the modernization efforts, the science, the education, the printing, the medicine of these early missionaries that earned the goodwill and the favor of Thai authorities, particularly royalty. If it hadn't been for these modernizing developments the missionaries had brought, it's possible the missionaries would not have had the welcome that they did for so many years in Thailand. In addition to the American Baptists and the American Board of Commissioners for Foreign Missions, in the 1840s, the American Presbyterians eventually showed up as well. They were a little bit latecomers compared to some of the others, but between the 1840s and the 1850s, the ABCFM and the American Baptists closed up their work through deaths, through attrition, through various causes, so that from the 1840s up to the 1940s, probably 90-some-odd% of the mission force in Thailand were American Presbyterians. In the 1840s, they sent their first representative from the American Presbyterian Mission. He only stayed a few years. His wife was ill, and they had to go home. But in 1847, Stephen Mattoon and his wife, along with Dr. Samuel Reynolds House and his wife, they came to Bangkok. They set to work studying Thai. There were some Christians already that had been part of the Baptist work, where the Baptist work had closed up. Some of those missionaries had gone home, so they transferred over to the Presbyterian mission. In 1849, they started First Presbyterian Church, Samre, in Bangkok. It was mostly missionary members. There was one Chinese Christian who was a member of that church as well. But this little church on the banks of the Chao Phraya River, it grew. It eventually had its own building. Today, it's pulled significantly back from the river as the landscape has changed. But the church is still an active part of the Church of Christ in Thailand today. And the church grew over the years. But that was Presbyterian first efforts during that time period. Whether it was the American Baptists, American Presbyterians, or the American Board, all these missionaries faced really significant challenges during this time period. There were very, very few foreigners. There was very little foreign presence in Thailand in terms of Western presence. Many Chinese, but not too many Westerners. One of the challenges they faced was health. There was no modern medicine at the time, no fans. Death and sickness were common. Fever, epidemics. Sanitation was not developed as it is today. It was believed by the Thai that sickness was caused by an imbalance of different elements in the body: uh, earth, wind, fire, water. They had not yet adopted modern germ theory. And there was a number of missionaries who got sick, they died, there's accidents, there was drownings. Um, Communications was also very challenging as well. There was no established postal service at the time. It was an 8-month trip on boat from the United States to Thailand. Most roads were only dirt at the time, and so the only evangelistic trips that could be done were during dry season. During rainy season, everything was flooded. When you did need to get someplace further away, you had to take a boat up the river. And also, the missionaries found themselves very challenged by indigenous religion. Buddhism mixed with animistic spirit worship, Brahmanism. It touched every part of society. The temple was the center point of the community. It was expected that every young man become a monk. The only education was in temple schools. Also, there was political instability at the time as well. Thailand, as we know it today, had not yet taken its modern form. So the far north of Thailand, as we know it today, that was various different Lao kingdoms. In the northeast of Thailand, there was also different kingdoms, some of them being vassal states of the king in Siam. There was a huge Chinese population, so there was always the threat of Chinese rebellion or Chinese dissent. In 1847, there was a Chinese insurrection in the province of Chachoengsao near Bangkok. They killed the Thai governor of the province, and the military had to be brought in to put down this Chinese insurrection. In our next video, we'll continue looking at early missionary efforts, including the strategies they used and the Thai responses to these early missionary efforts.